Stephen Covey, in his classic book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, coined the phrase, begin with the end in mind. Have you thought about your end? And not the end, you know what I mean, but where you want to be when your journey comes to a close. As Covey said it, what do you want to be when you grow up? My guest, Sir John Hargrave, has some thoughts on answering that question and then creating plans and actions to help us get there. That's what's coming up on today's One Simple Thing podcast.
It's time to build a better business by building a better you. This is One Simple Thing.
Welcome back to the show. Really enjoying my conversations with Sir John Hargrave. Go back and catch the first couple and catch up with us, and then enjoy this episode as well as we talk about setting goals and achieving goals. It's something that we all think about, right? We've heard it many, many times. And Sir John has got some interesting takes on it I think you're really going to enjoy. His book is called Mind Hacking, How to Change Your Mind for Good in 21 Days. And it's available through the banner ad when you go to onesimplethingonline.com. I'm noticing a lot of folks clicking on that banner over the last couple of days. So get yours too. Mind Hacking is the name of the book. And again, you can find the banner ad right on the right-hand side of the page when you go to onesimplethingonline.com. So, John, thank you for being here once again today on the One Simple Thing podcast.
Thanks, Dave.
You know, I've heard over and over again from other guests on this show about how important it is before we set goals, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is achieving your goals. But before we set the goals, we have to become really clear on what we want. And I know you talk about that in the book, how important it is to become clear.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ask most people what they want, they give you some vague answer like a pony. And, you know, everybody can tell you what they don't want, right? Like we all know that. But what you actually want is kind of difficult to really articulate that. But there's a ton of research that shows that when you are able to write down what you want, you are much more likely to achieve it. And we've got a lot of these studies in the book, but one of my favorite is this group of folks who were laid off from jobs. They actually split them into 2 groups. And one group, they said, you know, write about something that kind of led up to you like being let go of your job. And the other group, they said, write about your best possible future. Just write about the best thing that could happen to you. And that second group who wrote down this positive future, who articulated what they want, were not only hired faster, but they were also significantly happier and positive and more optimistic. And even their spouses and partners noticed a positive change in them. And that was just from writing something down 5 or 10 minutes a day.
So it's instead of looking backwards, it's about looking forward in our lives.
That's right. It's about imagining what it is that you want to do with your life. And I mean, think about how important it is to figure out for yourself where you want to end up, and think about how little time we all spend doing that. Instead, we tend to just kind of, you know, float wherever the tides of life take us. But when you can really start to be master of your own ship, there's no limit to what you can do.
You talk in the book about the connection between kind of figuring out what we want and the power of our imagination. And you spend quite a bit of time in the book talking about imagination. What's the connection there?
Well, imagination is, I believe, an underrated gift and an underrated skill that we can all learn to develop. In the book, we have a number of hacks or techniques that you can use to develop your power of imagination. So these come in the form of like stories, or thought experiments. So one of them would be like, we call it the $50 million inheritance. And the idea is that you have this distant aunt you never knew existed, who you are her only surviving relative. She passes away and she leaves you $50 million. So now you don't have to work for a living. What is it that you've always wanted to do? What is it in life that you've always really wanted to go out and do? And thinking through these mental stories helps you start to articulate, okay, this is where I want to go in my life. And that gives you something to shoot for in terms of positive goals.
Reminds me of something a friend of mine's dad used to say to him when he'd have a dilemma about a new job or a new course in life. His dad would say, what would you do if it weren't for the money? And
yeah, that's good.
It gives us the freedom then to be able to think about things on maybe a deeper or more meaningful level to us.
Yeah, that's right. We have another one called the funeral speech, and you just imagine your own funeral. I know that's a happy thought, but think about it. There's going to be one, and there's going to be people who are going to stand up and say a few nice words about you at the funeral, hopefully. And at that point, what is it that you want them to say about you? In other words, what is the kind of person you want to be? And what we talk about in the book is try to put that into a word, a single word. Try to get that quality into a word that represents that thing, whether it's honest or generous or loving or ambitious or kind, whatever that quality is that you want your life to reflect. Get it into a word, and that's something you can use then to reprogram your mind with that positive loop, that positive thought.
So it's all about, and I love these exercises, and there's more of them in the book, but it's all about kind of distilling down who and what we want to be, so that when it comes time to say, okay, what do I want out of life, we've already kind of got this idea of where we want to go and who we want to be.
Yeah, simplify it. Get it down into a single word, and that makes it much easier to kind of grasp, but it also makes it something that you can more easily repeat to yourself and turn into a positive loop.
Now, you talk about the trap of falling into what you call magical thinking, which is kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit of warning as we're dreaming about who we're going to be or who we want to be, right?
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of the idea that you can just think things and have them magically manifest. And again, there's a lot of scientific research that shows that people who just have these sort of positive visualizations actually do not achieve things as quickly as people who make a plan of action and then visualize how they're going to get to the goal. So the difference is in this one study, they developed an experiment with two groups of college students. In the first group, they said, we want you to visualize getting a good grade at the end of the semester. So this kind of manifesting idea. And the second, they said, we want you to simulate the process of getting to a good grade. So in other words, think about, like, when are you going to study? How are you going to study? How are you going to turn down the invitation to go to a party? How are you going to get a good night's sleep the night before? How are you going to take the test? And then getting the good grade. So first group, just picturing the end result, visualizing it. Second group, seeing the entire process, simulating it. Well, the second group consistently did better, sometimes up to a full letter grade better than the first group. Wow. So the lesson from that is you got to make a plan. You have to simulate how you're going to get there. You can't just magically think that you're going to visualize it and it's going to happen. Got to make a plan.
I always think, and when you say make a plan, that's where we're getting down to goals. And I always think about goals as kind of the reverse engineering of the endpoint, right? We decide where we want to be, and then I reverse engineer how to get there, and that's my goals.
That's such a great way of looking at it. I'm going to have to use that. Do you mind? Can I use reverse engineering? That's great.
Just give me credit. Actually, I stole it from multiple people, so yeah, you're fine.
So Jack Nicklaus, who's the greatest professional golf player of all time, he said in his autobiography, before every shot, he would reverse engineer it. So he would literally see it rolling into the cup, and then he would see it sailing through the air like he was watching a video in reverse. And then he would see it coming back. He would see this perfect swing in reverse, and then it would go back into the present moment where he was right now. And he said that exercise, that simulation before every shot, helped him with this positive attitude to every shot, no matter where he was, no matter how difficult his situation. It always gave him this positive approach, and it's totally in line with that reverse engineering idea you just came up with.
So how do we do that then? How do I take my dream and then turn it into a series of practical steps that are going to make it easier for me to get there?
Sure.
Possible.
So there's a whole section of the book devoted to setting sub-goals that you can actually achieve. But I'm going to condense that into one hack that you can use right now, the one simple thing, which is every day in the shower, run this mental simulation through that goal that you're trying to achieve. So in other words, think about, where am I trying to get? And then, as you just said, reverse engineer it back to the present day. And just like those students had to think about how were they going to get to the good grade, think about all the problems that you're likely to run into as you try to achieve that goal, and think about how you're going to get around those goals. See yourself successfully conquering them. And then what happens is, in real life, when you actually run into those obstacles, you become more self-confident because you've already run these simulations, you've already figured out contingency plans, and you're more able to deal with adversity and difficulty in getting to those goals. It really works.
So every day in the shower, reverse engineer. Do I just take it a day at a time so I know what the end goal is, right?
Yeah.
But that may not happen today. So do I just kind of, okay, what are the steps that are going to move the ball down the field today?
That's right. I always figure out, like, well, where am I today? And then where is that end goal that I'm trying to get to? And what are the, the rough steps? And obviously, life is going to play out differently than you have imagined it. And therefore, you try to run a different simulation each day. Well, what happens if it goes like this? What happens if it goes like this? And just like a computer running different traffic or weather simulations, you're trying to run those simulations in your own mind so you will be able to plan for and deal with anything that comes up in real life.
And for those of you who might be thinking, oh, this sounds complicated, or whatever, because he's talking a lot about computers or whatever, I would really recommend you get the book because, John, you do an excellent job of using these metaphors of computers and technology and things, but then breaking it down into, okay, here's what you do, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you walk us through how to actually accomplish these things, and it's just so valuable. So we'll tell everybody how to get the book here in just a moment. John, I have absolutely enjoyed this.
Me too.
Hopefully we could talk again sometime, but thank you for being here.
I would love that. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you, Dave. And thank you for the podcast you do. And everybody should go out and rate and review Dave's podcast on iTunes. And he works really hard on creating this great content. All you got to do to give him some thanks is leave him some positive comments, share it with a friend. Right, Dave?
That's right. Thank you for the for the plug there, and everybody needs to obey. I appreciate the plug. If you do want to leave us a rating and review, we've made it as easy as we can. Just go to onesimplething.online.com. On the top menu, you'll see the support the show option. Click on that, and it takes you to a special page we've set up. It's got a link to iTunes, got links to Facebook and Twitter where you can leave promo messages there as well. But the iTunes link is right at the top of the page. Again, onesimplething.online.com, then click on support the show. While you're there, you'll notice right on the right-hand side of the front page a banner for Sir John Hargrave and his book, Mind Hacking. Click on that. It'll take you to Amazon where you can pick up your copy. It's called Mind Hacking, How to Change Your Mind for Good in 21 Days. Really good book. It's a simple read. John has a way of laying things out in an easy-to-follow format where he'll walk you through step-by-step how to create that change in your life. So pick up your copy again at onesimplething.online.com. The banner ad is there on the right-hand side of the page. I'm Dave Kirby. Thanks for listening today. I'll be back next time. Hopefully you'll be here with me on the One Simple Thing podcast.